If you don't believe we're living in the final days, then you are blind to what's going on all around us.
A mass exodus out of Israel to the south into the nations that are in the alliance with them. Isaiah chapter 19 describes Egypt harboring a mass exodus of Jews leaving the state of Israel. Daniel 11
starts. We'll start with a boom. First of all, it has already started.
It has started?
As far as I could see, it has started. It started on September 11th.
Fears that this war could soon spread to multiple fronts. Meanwhile, more waves of relentless rocket fire from Gaza.
And we are facing something bigger than we have ever seen since the establishment of the State of Israel. Throughout all the wars in 1948, in 1956, in 1967, 1973, 1982, in the case that Israeli soldiers fought in the front line. Today, Israeli soldiers did not fight in the front line. Today, terrorists knocked on the doors of civilians in their homes.
Hey, what's up, Jazzy family? As we bring you this tonight, be in prayer for Israel and all innocent people.
Yes.
Innocent people are suffering from these bad decisions of these leaders. They're being killed. They're being beheaded. Babies being beheaded.
Children.
Babies.
Yes.
And also spoken of throughout the Bible. And even prophets in today's society is spoken about this.
And it's being confirmed
today
right
we are going
now.
to show you the prophecies that were spoken.
This peace agreement will be violated from the north side of Israel. From the mountains of the north, the Golan Heights will be violated first. Enemy forces will violate the northern border and will occupy the north and will begin to use the north as a staging area for the assault on Jerusalem. So when the north part of the country falls and is occupied, military forces will occupy the upper Galilee area. Then the military forces will move to cut the road between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Daniel chapter 11 describes this in it's very vivid language. He says that the Antichrist is going to establish his palatial tents in between the holy city and the Mediterranean. Now, if you draw a line from Jerusalem to the Mediterranean, you're actually drawing a line where the highway goes. Ben Gurion Airport is right in the middle of that. Ben Gurion Airport will be seized and occupied. The road from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem will be cut, and military forces will occupy that area. There's going to be a regional alliance between Israel and a number of Arab nations that will be led by Saudi Arabia and Egypt that will form and provoke a counter-alliance. The Arabian Peninsula and Egypt, Jordan, modern day, I'm going to use modern day names of the nation states. They didn't exist then, but the territories that were described in the book of Isaiah is the modern day nation states of Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. These nations are going to form an alliance with Israel. It will be Saudi-led. This alliance
and Saudi Arabia have agreed on the broad contours of a deal for Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel in exchange for concession to the Palestinians. Also, Saudi Arabia wants U.S. security guarantees, and I think this is the bigger thing for them, help with their civilian nuclear program. Now, that is according to U.S. officials who were quoted off the record. And as you said, and you have gone from hammering out larger details to some of the finer details. Listen, I've heard people here in Israel, people I respect and admire, that know Middle East foreign policy way more than I do, call it the mother of all Middle East peace deals. The Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, a man in his late 30s, the de facto ruler of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He's been meeting in Jeddah for the last few weeks, in fact, months, with Jake Sullivan, President Biden's national security advisor, trying to get these talks moving. So now we're hearing they're talking specifics. So the significant concession from Israel would be help promoting the creation of a Palestinian state.
Egypt has been in a peace agreement with Israel for decades, led the way. Jordan has been in a peace agreement with Israel. They already have diplomatic, economic, they have great relationships. You see on the news all the stuff, but at the end of the day, there's deep coordination between these countries. The connection between the Israelis and the Egyptians and the Jordanians is a very, very strong relationship. The Saudi relationship is very strong behind the scenes, and it's going to become very public in the days ahead. And once the Saudi peace goes public, it's going to be a game changer. This formation, and we don't know how far off it is, but Isaiah said it's going to happen. That's the game changer, is when Saudi steps into the world stage and that agreement goes into effect. That's going to provoke a counter alliance in the Middle East. It's going to form a coalition of nations that do not support that. Now, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Psalm 83, specifically Ezekiel 38 and 39, actually name the nations that will be a part of this coalition to counter the Saudi-Egyptian-Israeli alliance. It will be led by Turkey and Iran, probably not configured the way that Turkey and Iran are configured today, but we're going to see an alliance of 10 nations that will coordinate diplomatically very, very quickly in response to the Saudi alliance. When that happens, it's going to move towards a season of unprecedented peace, diplomatically, politically, economically in the Middle East. There might be a or multiple military conflicts before then to set the context for it. I assume there will be a big one soon that will realign the equilibrium of the region and set the context for the alliance to take place. There will be peace agreement between let's say the Israeli-Saudi bloc and let's call it the Turkish-Iranian bloc. And the Saudi-Egyptian-Israeli alliance will provoke very interesting things in the neighboring countries, both positively and negatively. It will be heralded as a new era of human history. And it will be, and many things about it will be very, very amazing. There's economic relationship, there's tourism, there's all kinds of stuff. Something like that kind of regional shift is going to take place in the days ahead. I don't know how far out it is, but it will happen. This 10-nation coalition will form. When the coalition forms, a peace agreement will form between the two blocs, these two main parties, the Israel Alliance and the one that is not aligned with Israel. That peace agreement will be broken. When the peace agreement is broken, there will be 42 months of military conflict, specifically 1,260 days to be precise, of the most brutal season of history for both the Jewish people, the land of Israel, and the nations of the earth. It will be kicked off when this peace agreement is violated. Ezekiel says that this peace agreement will be violated from the north side of Israel, from the mountains of the north. The Golan Heights will be violated.
5775. This year, yes. Last Hebrew year.
We are in 5776, so it started last year, 3 days before Rosh Hashanah. Gog and Magog started.
Yes, that war has already started.
So why don't we sense anything?
Because God won't bring it at first. What will happen one certain day, it will just erupt. Something will set off and it will just erupt. All of the news channels, everything. Everyone will say, World War III has started. Everyone will just know. That's it.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared a state of war after a surprise and deadly Hamas attack overnight. The ruling Hamas militant group in the Gaza Strip carried out a multi-front attack within Israel, launching thousands of rockets as dozens of fighters crossed the country's border by air, land, and sea.
Everything is open.
So when you say that Gog is Obama, Obama is the United States, you say that he will lead the...
He will lead the whole war.
And who will join him?
Who will join him? Iran will join him. The UN. The whole UN.
Russia?
Yes, Russia, South Korea, the whole UN. Really, everyone. Everyone. All 70 nations will rise against us. 70.
Where is ISIS in all this?
ISIS. This is what I saw. They will kidnap people. They will just kidnap people.
They will kidnap our people?
Yes, like they did to Gilad Shalit. They will also do that. They will kidnap people and torture them and things like that.
Dozens of people, including children, women, and foreign nationals, are believed to have been taken as captives into Gaza.
Forces will violate the northern border and will occupy the north and will begin to use the north as a staging area for the assault on Jerusalem. So when the north part of the country falls and is occupied, military forces will occupy the upper Galilee area. Then the military forces will move to cut the road between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Daniel chapter 11 describes this in it's very vivid language. He says that the Antichrist is going to establish his palatial tents in between the holy city and the Mediterranean. Now, if you draw a line from Jerusalem to the Mediterranean, you're actually drawing a line where the highway goes. Ben Gurion Airport is right in the middle of that. Ben Gurion Airport will be seized and occupied. The road from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem will be cut, and military forces will occupy that area. That's what Daniel describes. At that time, Daniel also describes that there will be a mass exodus out of Israel to the south into the nations that are in the alliance with them. Isaiah chapter 19 describes Egypt harboring a mass exodus of Jews leaving the state of Israel. Daniel 11, the book of Micah, the book of Isaiah also describes at that time the mass exodus out of the south of Israel through the mountains of Judea into the Arabian Peninsula, into the territories of modern-day Jordan and the northwest part of the nation state of Saudi Arabia. There will be an unprecedented refugee crisis that will move south as the coalition of nations stages in the north. Egypt will fall. Isaiah 19 describes the collapse of Egypt as the Antichrist initiates an assault on Egypt because Egypt stands with Israel in this time. Saudi Arabia will collapse as well. It says that the day the peace agreement is broken in Matthew 24 and the abomination of desolation is set up and the invading forces begin the assault on Jerusalem, it says at that time he also attacks the harlot Babylon. There's going to be an economic alliance with the state of Israel with certain friendly nations. And the 10-nation coalition is going to hit Israel and the nations that are in economic agreement with Israel, because it's in their interest to remain connected with Israel. The 10-nation coalition is going to go after that thing to try to break it up. And when they go to try to break it up, a big part of this is going to be hitting the capital cities of these nations. So Jordan is going to get hit. Daniel 11 describes Jordan as being a harboring place where the Jewish people, they flee into the wilderness and they're protected there. Isaiah 19 describes protective elements in Egypt when the assault is taking place on Egypt. Daniel 11 describes that there's going to be a military intervention from Europe at that time that will be maritime. So there's naval presence. Daniel 11 describes naval intervention from Europe to block this because it's in Europe's interest that the Saudi-Israel-Egyptian alliance does not crumble, because the world will be benefiting from this. The economic prosperity that will come from this peace agreement that the 10-nation coalition is going to attack this peace agreement is going to be something that the nations of the earth are very much drinking from. They need to prop this thing up, and they need to intervene from the assault. That intervention will fail, Daniel describes. We have this idea that the Antichrist is sort of this like invincible guy that everyone worships and adores, and the whole world goes, hey, that guy's great, let's follow the Antichrist. That's not how the Bible describes the man of sin. It describes a very normal political situation like we've seen in human history. A man rises, coalitions are formed, an invasion of a specific territory kicks things off, and then everyone picks their sides, and then it turns into a regional bar fight. That's what's going to happen when the Antichrist attacks the Israeli-Saudi-Egyptian alliance. Everyone's going to pick a side, and it's not going to be the sort of thing where in Revelation when it says the whole world worships the beast, don't take that phrase to mean, the Fijians are watching CNN going like, yeah, totally, we should worship that guy. It doesn't mean that everyone in the world is going to bow down and go, we love the Antichrist. He's going to be met with fierce resistance. Daniel chapter 11 and Daniel chapter 12 describe the frustration in his heart because his attack on Egypt fails. He's turned back. It says he comes back with rage in his heart towards the Holy Covenant when his attack on Egypt is met with fierce resistance because the Egyptians put up a fight. King of the north and the king of the south clash, and in the eye of the storm is the fledgling state of Israel fighting for survival. Zechariah 14 describes the division of the city of Jerusalem into two parts. Read Zechariah 14, it's very heavy. Half of the city will be divided, half of the city will be deported, half of the city will remain, it says. Jerusalem will be divided, Jerusalem will be occupied. There will be a resistance force that remains in Jerusalem up until the end, but it will collapse at the very end.
And we are facing something bigger than we have ever seen since the establishment of the State of Israel.
Jesus spoke of wars being a sign of the end of the age. And you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet, for nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Jesus said, when you see these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. So what should we do? Firstly, we should make sure that we're right with God by trusting in Jesus. Secondly, we must pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and at the same time take the gospel to the unsaved. An often overlooked sign of the end times is that the gospel will be preached to all nations. Jesus said, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come.
You won't be able to keep from telling people around you about Jesus. And Jesus said, the road to hell is broad and many are on it, but the path that leads to the gate to heaven is narrow and few people find it. By Christ's statistics, the majority of people that you see every single day are headed to an eternity separated from Him forever. And what are we doing to tell the world